Okay, so I recently read Arthur Schopenhauer's essay titled On Women, and it's pretty wild. If you're a feminist, do not watch this video, please. You're going to absolutely hate it. And if anything in this video greatly offends you, please do not attack me. I'm just going through some of the wildest, craziest, funniest quotes from the essay. If you don't know who Arthur Schopenhauer is, he was a philosopher that Nietzsche was a fan of. And he wrote this essay on women. He had an abusive relationship with his mother. He's regarded as a great philosopher, and he was alive during the 19th century. This guy, I think, is the original black pillar. So let's just rip off the Band-Aid, and this is how he starts off the essay. One need only look at a woman's shape to discover that she is not intended for either too much mental or too much physical work. All right, here we go. Then he says, women are directly adapted to act as the nurses and educators of our early childhood, for the simple reason that they themselves are childish, foolish, and short-sighted. In a word, are big children all their lives, something intermediate between the child and the man. So, you can probably tell by now he does not view men and women as equals. He views women more as something in between child and man. And so, we're not even through like the first paragraph of this essay, and it only gets worse. So let's keep going. Women in their hearts think that men are intended to earn money so that they may spend it, if possible during their husband's life, but at any rate after his death. I don't think that one's so bad. I think women do like to spend more than men. And certainly when the husband dies, or especially in divorce, you definitely see some spending. This is why women are more sober in their judgment than we, and why they see nothing more in things than is really there, while we, if our passions are aroused, slightly exaggerate or add to our imagination. I think that's true also. I think women look at things kind of as they are, and as men, we like to exaggerate things, which is how you get, some of the great stories throughout history. It is because women's reasoning powers are weaker that they show more sympathy for the unfortunate than men, and consequently take a kindlier interest in them. So I'm not going to sit here and argue that that's true, but it's certainly true that women tend to show more sympathy for those who are unfortunate. We see that in politics today with illegal immigration. That only happens because of widespread sympathy and empathy amongst, mainly white liberal women. Nature has not destined them as the weaker sex to be dependent on strength, but on cunning. This is why they are instinctively crafty and have a tendency to lie. I do believe that women are more cunning than men. I think that makes sense. I'm not going to sit here and say that all women are liars, but I think they are certainly more cunning than we are. And so this is the original black pill right here. Nature has made it the calling of the young, strong, and handsome men to look after the propagation of the human race, so that the species may not degenerate. This is the firm will of nature, and it finds its expression in the passions of women. This law surpasses all others in both age and power. So, Schopenhauer kind of agrees with the current black pill movement that young, handsome, strong men get all the women. And he says that these young, handsome men are actually supposed to get all the women because otherwise mankind would degenerate. I don't think that's entirely true, but he was very much on the black pill wave long ago. Because women in truth exist entirely for the propagation of the race, and their destiny ends here, they live more for the species than for the individual, and in their hearts take the affairs of the species more seriously than those of the individual. That's brutal. I don't think that women should be reduced to just the propagation of the human race, but it is an important aspect for both men and women. And you see that today, men and women are not having children, and there's a rapid decline in the birth rate, and it's going to end very poorly. So we have to find a happy medium between modern feminism and this. Again, here's another black pill. Further, while a man will, as a rule, address others, even those inferior to himself, with a certain feeling of consideration and humanity, it is unbearable to see how proudly and disdainfully a lady of rank will, for the most part, behave towards one who is in a lower rank. Any guy that is maybe not in the top echelon of men has a great understanding of this. Women do not notice you. They do not look at you. You don't even exist to them. Where men are more likely to talk and engage with people that are lower status than them than women are. Not always, but on average. It is only the man whose intellect is clouded by his sexual instinct that could give that stunted, narrow-shouldered, broad-hipped, and short-legged race the name of the fair sex. For the entire beauty of the sex is based on this instinct. One would be more justified in calling them the unaesthetic sex than the beautiful, Neither for music, nor for poetry, nor for fine art have they any real or true senses and susceptibility, and it is mere mockery on their part and their desire to please if they affect any such thing. That's one of the more brutal ones in there. But again, that kind of goes with the black pill movement of today, where men are saying, oh, men are more beautiful than women because a man's beauty just is, where a woman's beauty is hyperfixated on, like, you know, all the makeup and stuff like that. I don't think that's true. I'm willing to say that women are the fairer sex. I think as a straight man, that's a fine thing to say, but I guess it's interesting. One need only watch the way they behave at a concert, the opera, or the play. The childish simplicity, for instance, with which they keep on chattering during the finest passages in the greatest masterpieces. I mean, if anyone that's sat through a movie or a good TV show with their girlfriend or wife knows that women do tend to talk during movies and TV shows. It sounded like that was also happening in plays a couple hundred years ago. Nothing different can be expected of women if it is borne in mind that the most eminent of the whole sex have never accomplished anything in the fine arts that is really great, genuine, and original, or given to the world any kind of work of permanent value. So I don't think this is true exactly. It's changed significantly since the time of Schopenhauer, but even back then there were prominent female painters. And I mean, in the 19th century too, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, which very much is an original work. And again, this has changed significantly since Schopenhauer lived. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter is not necessarily original, but I would still say that it is a beautiful story. Okay, this one's wild. And further, it is because they are Philistines that modern society, to which they give the tone and where they have sway, has become corrupted. So comparing women to Philistines is hilarious, but wild. He's basically saying that, wherever women go, they're corrupting society. I don't think that's entirely fair, but okay, here we go. This is the single craziest passage from the essay. Oh God. All right. They ought to mind home and be well fed and clothed, but not mixed in society, well educated too in religion, but to read neither poetry nor politics, nothing but books of piety and cookery, music, drawing, dancing, also a little gardening and plowing now and then. I have seen them mending the roads in Epirus with good success. Why not as well as haymaking and milking? I mean, that's the worst one. That is by far the worst one. I don't know what else to say other than he was pissed when he was writing this one. We're just going to move on from that. In our part of the world where monogamy is in force, to marry means to have one's rights and double one's duties. So this is one of the most famous quotes from this essay, and I think it's very applicable to modern marriage. You have your rights and you double your duties, and then you also double your risk. You can lose half your money, and it doesn't really make sense for modern men, especially when the divorce rate is greater than 50%, to get married in modern times. And I think that's a very sad thing because marriage should be something that we want to strive for. Therefore, whilst among polygamous nations every woman finds maintenance, where monogamy exists, that the number of married women is limited, and a countless number of women who are without support remain over. Those in the upper class vegetate as useless old maids. Those in the lower are reduced to very hard work of a distasteful nature, or become prostitutes, and lead a life which is as joyless as it is void of honor. I do think we now have the absolute extreme of the last part of that, which is OnlyFans. And so I guess Arthur Schopenhauer kind of predicted OnlyFans with the direction that modern society has gone. We're continuing on polygamy. Hence, polygamy is a real benefit to the female sex, taking it as a whole. And on the other hand, there is no reason why a man whose wife suffers from chronic illness or remains barren or has gradually become too old for him should not take a second. Many people become converts to Mormonism for the precise reasons that they condemn the unnatural institution of monogamy. This last part of the essay, we're almost done. He seems to be a big fan of polygamy, and he argues that women are better off in polygamy, which I don't know. Many a man thinks marriage unadvisable as far as his social standing and monetary position are concerned, unless he contracts a brilliant match. Again, this goes exactly with, the sentiment of modern marriage amongst men. It doesn't seem monetarily worth it with the great risk of divorce. For it shows that among all nations and in all ages, down to the Lutheran Reformation, concubinage was allowed, nay, that it was an institution, in a certain measure even recognized by law and associated with no dishonor. So I guess up until the Lutheran Reformation, which was in the 16th century, I believe, it was actually normal and it was not considered dishonorable for a man to take concubines, which is interesting. Consequently, as each man needs many women, nothing is more just than to let him, nay, make it incumbent upon him to provide for many women. So this is kind of getting into the polygamous aspect of, guys like Andrew Tate in the world. I think there's something to be said for protecting and providing for many women and having, a great big family and lots of children. But I don't know. I still believe in a romantic, monogamous love, but maybe I'm a fool. The vanity of women, even if it should not be greater than that of men, has this evil in it, that it is directed on material things. Men's vanity, on the other hand, is often directed on non-material advantages, such as intellect, learning, courage, and the like. I do think that's true. Like if you drive a fast car or wear a nice watch or you're dressed in a nice suit, you're far more likely to garner attention from women because of just that. I think masculinity in today's age has been skewed a little bit to where guys also look at other guys and see like, oh, that's so cool. I think he's generally right that it's more so men's vanity is towards intellect, learning, courage. But I do think it's true that women tend to fixate more on material things. Okay, we're on the last two quotes before we finish up. That the influence of women in France, which has been increasing since Louis XIII's time, was to blame for that gradual corruption of the court and government, which led to the First Revolution. So he talks about the French Revolution, and he also talks about the fall of Sparta in ancient Greece. And he attributes both of the fall of these societies to women having too much influence and power. I don't know enough about it, but he seems very adamant that it is true. And now here's the final passage from the essay. This is because she requires a master. If she is young, the man is a lover. If she is old, a priest. And that's the end of the essay. You can read it in like 15 minutes. I'll link it below. You should read it. What are my opinions on it? I think it's a bit extreme, especially in, modern times. He's very critical of women striving for equality, so he would hate modern feminism. I'm not a fan of modern feminism, but I don't think we should go back to this. I think some of his points are reasonable and I understand them. You also have to remember that he had horrible experiences with women in his life. His mother was a narcissist and she abused him, and that very much shaped him. There's a sentiment amongst a lot of these old philosophers that, whenever you get to the section titled On Women, like Nietzsche has one as well. It's like, okay, here we go. So I don't know. Let me know what you think below. Again, if you were very offended by any of this, I'm not like stating any of this as my opinions. I'm just kind of going through this essay that is partly funny, partly just nuts, and partly true. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think below.